Yeah, I think tear out the, just kind of enhance what we have.
But yeah, you know, you're fine.
At least if it's gonna be for the next 5 years, you know? Until all this other stuff happens.
Seeing her house.
Let's not make it look terrible until that happens, you know?
And then Randy and Kathy Fivecoat. Wonderful. And they've done a lot of work.
I've been
And then
kind of slow,
they're trying
or just middle of the road.
Robinson.
But I'm still busy. I'm still busy without the income. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they're still building ones they have on the
And
books.
they're probably pretty honest with them.
You know, they already had the commitments, so they're doing them. I'm still doing, I've got some land things I'm doing. If people are still buying land, because they're gonna buy it out of that, because by the time they're building, things like that. But I hate to say it, I'm about to. That's 60-some%. That's a big chunk. But it goes up. I'm mad.
Look, Mike JC.
Hey, Katie, that's that. National Love is no longer our ex-issue. I don't think we have one yet.
Work on it and hadn't closed yet. So it could be
Quite a bit of property.
200 acres. But it'd be good if it did.
Are we ready? Okay. All right. I'd like to officially call to order this meeting of the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation, and if we'll all stand, I'll lead us in an invocation. Father, we pause in this moment to honor you, and we ask that you just rule over this meeting. Lord, let our hearts be in the thoughts and minds of the people of the city of Terrell. Pray for each of these board members, for the participants that are here today. May everything we do honor you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. If you'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, do we have any visitor remarks this morning, Katie? All right, hearing none, I would ask our board to review the minutes from our June 9th meeting. After you've had a chance to do so, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Beginning with new business today, we are going to discuss and consider fiscal year 2023 proposed downtown project expenditures, and for that, I'll call on Raylan Smith.
So I'm bringing back to you just a couple of items that y'all discussed to go ahead and fund for 2023. I wanted to let you know that I received an update from Mark Thacker to do the building assessment. You had originally budgeted not to exceed 100,000, so it looks like it's going to be around 75,000. So I just kind of wanted to update you on that pricing. He now has the inventory of all the buildings, and so he's starting to work on the renderings, and so that process is moving forward. The other item that I wanted to bring you was a follow-up from Kimley Horn for the landscape improvement proposal. Looks like the design itself is estimated at 55,000. They have put together a total budget, including contingency and the design fees of the 677. But they also put in there the quantity and the individual unit price. So I think as you get into the actual design process and you start looking at the plants and what items will actually be included in your project, the project amount will decrease. But I just wanted to give you an update on that budget. So for this fiscal year, with your approval, we would start with the design contract and then hopefully get that wrapped up in about 60 days, and that would put you into planning in the fall. You do?
Downtown building assessment is a tool that we would like to have when we're trying to approve businesses to tear. So right now, we don't have an inventory of all of our buildings, what their sizes are, what their current needs are, which buildings need new roof, which building needs all new electrical, which building, floors rotted out of. And so Mark is taking the time to go in all these buildings, make estimates about what type of things will be required to bring them up to code, so that when a developer, investor, one of you, wants to buy a building downtown, you know about the size you need for your business. You can meet with Raylan and she can show you some possibilities pretty quickly, because right now we don't have that information at our fingertips.
Right.
We're hoping that will start to develop downtown. In regard to the landscape plans, complete streets enhancements, we all have the desire to see the appearance of downtown amplified. And there's talk about long-term growth plans for transportation downtown. And what that may look like, we don't know because it's Texas Road, not our own. And while we wait for them to make a decision, the bid process, we don't know how long that will take. We're not content to just sit on our haunches and let the downtown look like it does today, even though it may get torn up at some point. So we make a significant investment to the tune of maybe $400,000 in some landscaping and hardscaping downtown pretty quickly, early next year, most likely. So Raylan's been working with design firm to put those plans and options
Yeah.
together to help us decide how much to spend and where to put it.
So I think for right now, what I'm asking for the fiscal year '23 is your consideration for the design services contract. And so that would take us to the next step, to start with your landscape project.
All right, so we'll need a motion from the board.
Before we entertain a motion, could I just add some comments to that? So I was looking at it and really thinking, and I understand for the proposal, Mark, the only way to do it is to do averages.
Right.
But in looking at his proposal, looking at the time spent on each building, if we could just give him some feedback, like Houston Smith's buildings have recently already, like, people like Houston Smith and Matt Malone and Elliott Jones, those people have already done that work. They've already gotten their buildings up to code. They already know exactly what their square footage is. So I don't know if they need to be a part of that process, or if they are a part of that process, if they could just be a much more limited, and then we can really focus our time on the buildings that
Right.
we want
No,
future.
so I have provided Thacker with any buildings that have recently had building permits pulled. So we've done a lot of the historical just permit data for him. And so it will be a part of the main plan, but obviously, yes, less time would be spent on those, for sure. Thank you.
Any other questions for Raylan? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the expenditures as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none.
Thank
All
you.
those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we are to discuss and consider proposed park project expenditures, and for that, I'll call on Glenn.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Board. This morning, I'm going to allow Mr. Horn to spend a little time with you all. He's done a lot of work, and so has Demeter, on this project in my absence as I was in South Florida. So I'll chime in as needed. We do have copies. I know at the last meeting, you all asked to see some of the cost estimates associated with some of the items that were that were chosen. So we have those here in the file. I'll take the folder, and if each one of you can grab one of each copy out of each individual folder and just pass it down so I don't have to be up there running back and forth. Okay, Mr. Horn?
Thank you. So if you go on to the next slide, thank you. So at the start of our presentation, next slide, please. The park board had recommended items for the paddock board to do for the upcoming year for FY23, FY24, and FY25 and 26. And we went to the paddock board, next slide, on May 12th and June 9th to discuss and consider those items. Next slide, please. At Bengal Park, you can see that we originally estimated to be $170,000 for the replacement of the wooden bridge. That estimate has changed since we received quotes on that item, which you will see in the estimates that we have provided you. Reached out to 5 contractors for the bridge, and some were able to complete the task properly, and while others were not, providing us the quote that we needed to get everything done. For the resurfacing and replacement of the multi-purpose court, you'll see that in your packet as well. Estimates also have changed on that number, and as well as the resurface of and replace of the tennis courts with the pickleball striping. And one thing we did want to note, when replacing and resurfacing the tennis court, we wanted to account for all changes, which would be the fencing, it's rusted, gates are falling apart, and other items as well, such as the cracks. So those items were taken into account into the pricing of this resurfacing of those courts. Next slide. For Breezy Hill, we have the modular restroom proposed to do in FY25 and FY26 as per the last meeting, and install the picnic tables right now, if you guys so move that towards your budget, as well as install the grills. We are ready to move on those items. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That will be in our summary slide on the end. For Arlie White, another modular restroom that was proposed for FY25, FY26, and the resurfacing of the basketball court at Arlie White as well. To install the court lighting, that is proposed for FY24, and then also picnic tables and benches are proposed for that time as well. For Kings Creek, we have the play area lighting, which we can move forward with today. And you'll see the summary spreadsheet for those items for this upcoming year. We estimated it to be $25,000. Came in for the picnic tables and benches, it was $21,613. For the 8 picnic tables and benches, with the installation costs associated, one thing that we did not account for was the concrete pads, which reached out to several contractors to get pricing on those for the missing pads that we're going to add out at the parks. Wait, go back. And then as well as the play area lighting, you can see that the cost associated was $10,500 to move forward. We did receive another pricing from a contractor yesterday, which came out to be a little bit less than that. It was about $7,000 to $8,000 total for the cost of the lighting as well as the installation together. For the upcoming year, for the bridge, estimate has ran up to $220,000, And that's just the cost of material, as well as labor has gone up since we last reviewed this item. And for the bridge, it accounts for ADA handicap rails, as well as concrete abutments and all other items that were not, that were to be foreseen for the bridge for anybody to be able to use. The repair and resurface of the tennis courts, like I previously mentioned, the lowest bidder for the multi-purpose court and the tennis court priced us around 69,000, but with the cost of the fencing, the cost for the tennis court and the multi-purpose court, roughly, it's about the same, 10,000 up on the multi-purpose court, but 20,000 less on the tennis court with the prices calculated all together. And then for the installation of the solar lighting, since it is FY24, just anticipating there might be a price cost hike, just in case that somebody might come in a little bit higher than what was previously calculated. And for the picnic tables, same information. Any questions? Go ahead.
I think I understand you to say that some of the numbers before us don't match the actual bids that came in.
Yes.
Talk to me about the bid process on these.
So when we reach out for a budget, we want to anticipate what it's going to cost when we actually go out to bid. When we go to the newspaper, when we do our formal process, some of those numbers will come in higher than what they are now when it gets approved through our budget in October. With that number of difference, we've seen it time and time again.
Let me help Mr. Horn on this. So the city financial policy states that any project that we do that's under $50,000, we acquire 3 quotes. Anything over $50,000, we will get cost estimates. And once we receive the cost estimates and once we're approved to move forward with anything over $50,000, we'll go out, advertise it, and bid it to the public. So that's how that process works. So anything that's approved that's above $50,000, we still have to go through a bid process.
Questions for Cornell and Glenn?
Cornell, how many, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you know how many picnic tables are already at Breezy Hill? So I went out for the Juneteenth celebration out there, and the grills are, oh, guys, they're bad. But the tables looked pretty good. So is this for more tables than are already existing, or is there something wrong with the existing tables?
So this is to replace and add.
Okay, I have a question on the module, the bathroom module. We've talked about those. And, on Breezy Hill Park, you were saying you think about putting more than one module up there, or either a permanent, extra permanent restroom up there. So have you compared the price of the module with a permanent one? The module only hold one stall, right? It's one
That's
stall
correct.
in the module.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. I've noticed the traffic and people up at Breezy Hill Park, and it's quite a few people up there. I don't know if one stall would be sufficient for the amount of people that you have up there. So I don't know if you looked into that or not.
Yes, it's obvious that that particular park and probably all the parks in Terrell, moving forward, one stalls is not meeting expectations and covering the capacity for all the parks. That's why one of the goals is, if you recall, we had to have a placeholder. We had to start somewhere. We weren't able to acquire all the restrooms that we needed to service every single park all at one time. So my recommendation was at the last paddock board meeting and council meeting and park board meetings is that we install the modular restroom there at Breezy, that it's scheduled to be installed. Then immediately move forward with adding either temporary restrooms from a rental and then rehab the existing restroom until there's a determination on whether we go with a additional module or a build in place. Because one of the things you all wanted to do, you all wanted to do a comparison price to modular restroom versus a build in place. That does take time, and obviously we've got a host of tasks, and that is a task that we're working on as today. You know, I have no reason, and we have no reason to pressure modular restrooms. We love the value of those, and we want to respect your wishes and give you something to compare apples to apples on the product that you're getting.
The page before us right now, does that have accurate pricing?
The one you're looking at right here? Yes, ma'am.
But these
Those are
are
your
estimates.
Yes,
Those are your
your
estimates.
estimates. So,
You need a copy of the quotes that you got,
okay.
right? So we'll take the replacement of the wooden bridge. The estimate identified as $220,000, and the quotes that were received.
So it was the design and manufacture, that was about 57,000. But add-ons, you'll have the coat of paint, 16,000. The aluminum finish, that's about 23,000. And the other add-ons, when you add the ADA and all the safety access items, as well as the abutment, anchor and design to the bridge, along with the installation of the 120,000, it comes up to about 210,000, not including the demo, which is not the
Price from one contractor.
And that's bridge.
Yes, and then with the other contractors, some contractors only, when I asked them to provide this same information, they didn't provide all the information that we were needed to get a proper cost estimate.
Mr. Chairman, that's one of the reasons why, when we're working from estimates, they're just estimates that we call contractors to get an estimated cost. If you all decided to move forward with replacement of the wooden bridge, then we will assemble a bid packet for the contractors to give us actual bid pricing that we can move forward with your recommendation on a discuss and consider approval. So today, the wooden bridge is an estimate of what the cost is. This is nothing different than what we do with council. We'll go to council, we ask them, hey, this is something we want to bring forward. Board, please consider it. They say, yes, consider it. Move forward with getting the actual bid packet together, advertise it, and then come back with the cost for approval. The resurfacing of the courts, those resurfacing of the courts, I believe you did get actual costs associated with the resurfacing and repairs of the courts.
So I did receive several cost estimates on this. At first, they were looking high, about 125,000, 145,000. I guess they have the other estimates up there.
Which item? Oh, the tennis courts.
Yes,
Tennis courts.
on the tennis courts. But there is a cost estimate. I think you guys received all the copies on that one. It is about 68,000 to resurface both the tennis court and multipurpose court.
That sounds reasonable.
Right. But the other $150,000 would come from the fencing of that project,
Some portion of that,
some portion of that.
and you don't have that quote.
No, no, I don't have the accurate number for it, because when I got the quotes, they quoted for the tennis courts, and he gave me a verbal on the multipurpose court. He's like, that'll be another $50,000 to do the multipurpose court. And I was waiting on that quote. I didn't get official numbers on that one, but he said it'll run you about another 50,000-60,000 for the entire area.
Again, Madam President, this is a item that's above the $50,000 requirement for our financial policy. So therefore, in order to get actual costs associated with the total project, we'll assemble a bid packet with the design, everything's required to complete the project turnkey. We'll send it out, put together the packet, we'll advertise it, bid it, and come back to you with the actual cost.
Question for you, for all of our knowledge, you know, the paddock has a bank account. And whenever we vote on these projects, at what time do funds leave the paddock account and move into an account to actually pay these contractors?
That is a finance question. We do not know the exact timeline on that, so I don't know if Raylan.
Yeah, so what would happen is we will build your fiscal year '24 budget to include the funds or the projects that you want. Those funds remain in paddock until, what we would do is we would bring the bids back to you. Y'all would actually be the ones to award the contract, and then those bills will be paid directly out of the paddock line item. Yeah.
I think that makes us feel better.
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts that I really would like to hear from y'all. It is a lot of information.
Can
One
I
of the-
just, oh, go ahead, Myrani.
It's, because we do have two different agenda items present, or before us, the expenditures for park board wants, and then we also have the FY '23 budget. So I guess my question is, what are you hoping to get out of from this board today regarding this item? Is it an approval for any items under $50,000 that we agree on, or is this just FYI for '24 budget?
Well, my recommendation, or what I'm hoping we get out of this meeting today, is at least a parameter of the dollars and the cost expenditures associated with park-related matters. So what that number is, you know, the board will have to decide that, whether you want to look at and approve only the 50,000 and below. But typically, the estimate that you receive for the cost associated with the large projects and small projects, I would hope that you all make a decision today. We're not taking the money today. We'll only utilize the funds that are required to do the job once they're bidded, advertised, and the contract's awarded after the board approves it. So if you associate 200,000 or 220,000 associated with a replacement of a wooden bridge, that means your revenue will have a expenditure of $200,000 associated with the bridge. Doesn't mean that we're going to spend it all. Then at that point, and Raylan, you may want to chime in, those dollars that are unspent can be reallocated for other areas that you need to spend the money in. Same thing with the resurfacing of the courts. We're hoping that you identify a budget, just for budget purposes, a dollar amount of $150,000 or $100,000. And again, it's only a projected dollar amount. It's not set in stone. And I feel like there's a position that you're considering or thinking that we're trying to lock in an exact dollar. No, these are only estimated costs. And the actual costs will only be shown once we move forward with getting the projects out to bid.
I appreciate that. I think some of the heartburn comes from, I don't recall seeing in the past, I sit on a Trinity River Authority board, and whenever bids have gone out, the board gets to see what those bid amounts are. The staff advises on the best value, and then we vote to approve that. I don't ever recall seeing that on this board, and we're ready to see those
Okay,
when that time comes.
and you will. You will see those. This process for us is no different than the process we utilize for council. So council has not seen one single bid for FY '24. We provide projected cost estimates for FY '24. After we do that, council takes action on the proposed budget. Then we move forward, engineering, every department here at the city, every department that have expenditures associated with the budget will then go out to bid. Once we go out to bid, we get the costs, then we come back to that board for approval. This is the way it's been done since I've been here. The board does not get a formal proposal anytime sooner than that.
If y'all would just refresh my recollection, the multipurpose court that we're talking about is the basketball court, or am I misunderstanding that, or is that what we're talking about?
Well,
I know it's hard to call it a basketball court when it's but that's what it's being used for right now.
right, it's a
The
combination.
one closest to the new park.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Would it be striped for anything other than a basketball court?
Probably pickleball as well, as that's a new big thing. It can have a multi-array of stripings, all on one court. It'll be basketball probably, volleyball possibly. So it could be striped multiple different ways.
$85,000 is for one court.
I think it's wrong.
Yes, the most of the cost for that is the fencing. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, you guys.
Yes, it's a cost estimate, and it could come in lower than that, or a little bit higher. It's only an estimate for it at this time.
I feel like I want to call and get some bids for you, because when we got bids on our tennis court alone, less than $20,000. Chain link fencing, I mean, they're tall, I get it, and I hope we'll do like, the powder coated or vinyl coated, something that looks nice, but I'm having a hard time swallowing this number. I'm having a hard time swallowing $220,000 to replace a bridge. I just don't get it.
They're not cheap. Depending on, you gotta remember, for us, it depends on the design, how elaborate you wanna be. So you can flip the script on us. We can say we budget $220,000. You come back, you say, well, I want this bridge designed with diamonds on it. I'm
I
exaggerating.
think this one has diamonds.
No, it does not actually. So you may want some special feature associated with it. You may want arches. We're not at that point to determine the exact specifications for the design. If we had a design, yes, we can give you a more accurate cost estimate. That's related to the bridge. One of the things that I'll share with you, we did the Breezy Hill fencing. And the cost for Breezy Hill fencing was pleasant surprise. They wanted it powder coated. If you want these powder coated as well to be equivalent, you're well over 100,000, and that was only. Go ahead, tell them how much.
For the baseball field alone was above 100,000. We thought it would be, it was 126,000 for that whole area. Yeah.
Okay, so here's a thought. You all have got to be strong negotiators in the role that you're in, and I think we need to be thoughtful when we're doing similar projects in multiple areas. For instance, we're resurfacing 2 courts, refencing 2 courts. There has got to be economies of scale in doing that. I think we need to be thoughtful in our timing to do similar projects. When we're buying benches, buying a package of benches, there ought to be bulk discount, something. I think the benches were around $3,000.
That's correct.
Show me a catalog with a bench with a cost $3,000.
That's very easy, Ms. President. It's very easy.
Again,
It's very easy.
challenged to be good stewards of this money.
Yeah.
When we first talked about these projects, because we started out with a bang with the lights, that was our big parks project. And we don't ever want to forget about parks, but now we're kind of readjusting our focus for the upcoming fiscal year for downtown. But we still wanted to do, I think, what we consider low-hanging fruit at the parks. But this is more expensive than I expected for low-hanging fruit when it's replacement. There's nothing new and shiny that's not existing here. You brought us exactly what we asked for. I'm just disappointed in what it costs to do some of these things, I guess.
It's unfortunately, it's fairly expensive to operate in this arena. The materials and contents. You remember there's other alternatives for purchase, cooperative purchases, right? Have y'all ever heard of cooperative purchases? That's where municipalities and state and federal entities can go through and acquire things without going through the formal bid process.
Well, in
So-
bulk, right?
Well, not necessarily bulk, it can be individual items as well. They just don't have to advertise it, they give a flat cost associated, and you can choose from a number of approved vendors on that list, and you don't have to fight with negotiating. Even going that route, the cost for municipal or government purchased items, the quality in many instances are better. I do believe that in most cases. Sometimes it's not, but it's municipal purchases can be very expensive, unfortunately. I mean, just to repair and replace a 4-foot by 4-foot, what do you call them, climbing, what do you call the
climbing wall
rock
for the
climbing
playground?
wall? That was, I believe it was $4,600. This high, this wide. I'm like you, I go, wow. We are, and we're very aggressive with negotiating. We're very firm. We work really hard to save the city all the money that we can. And most of the people that we've worked with during my tenure, under Steve's tutelage, we are very aggressive. If the numbers aren't right, we make it known. And I, in confidence, can share with this board that we have proven over and over and over that we've been able to be very wise, very committed, and very, very respectful of the funds that we given. We don't settle. You have $220,000 as a cost estimate. We're not sharing with you that that is the actual cost. We're just positioning ourselves to have a number to work within, and our job is to spend $75,000 of that. You get the remaining dollars to do whatever you want with them, because we can't predetermine what those estimates are today for tomorrow. It's a tough position to be in. I respect what you're saying, I do, and I understand. It's painful for me too.
And Glenn, when I'm looking at this, like $150,000 for 6 courts and fences and gates and all of that, that seems reasonable to me. That does not, for 6 courts, $150,000 doesn't give me excessive heartburn. I think where I'm struggling is if we're looking at 1 court with fencing, and I understand one's a tennis court, one's not. Like, I understand that they're different products, but just the comparison of spending whatever the math is on that, $25,000 per court versus $85,000 per court. That's where I'm at.
And that's fair. So my recommendation to the board is to, in all good faith, position yourselves. You guys have some idea what you think it should be. And if it's $25,000, allocate $25,000. And I'm gonna spend that $25,000 as wisely and as frugal as possible. When I say I mean the city and staff. I'm not trying to be personal about this. I'm very passionate, but that's, so please, we're not married to any of these dollars, to be candid with you. If you give us, yes, Mr.
I
President.
think that's the direction we're headed, is what number would we feel comfortable allocating for a wooden bridge? If it's not 220,000, what's the number? And then they know what kind of bridge to go bid.
Yes.
I thought at one time that we talked about dividing the expense for the bridge with the city.
That is on an earlier slide.
Yeah, there, on
So-
an earlier slide, it says 50%.
So we're not talking $220,000.
But I also don't want to talk 110,000.
I don't either. I don't either, but I just want to clarify
Yes.
that we're not actually talking about the full amount.
Agreed, yeah. Since it was a replacement.
Replacing this bridge is replacing it with wood? This estimation is replacing with wood or some other material?
That's our point. There's options here. There's design decisions that need to be made. So we're essentially being asked to create something that we don't even know what it's going to be. Do you prefer a Galvalume or aluminum bridge set with some accent of cedar, some accent of some other material to complement? Those are variables that we would love to have input, or we bring forward several different options, recommendations, and then you mix and match or choose one or the other. So that is an open-ended opportunity for you to make some decisions to have a visual impact on what the community sees.
So Glenn, has the 50% that I'm like everybody else, I thought the city was also gonna help with 50%. Has that been brought to them?
We have not brought, that was a recommendation that we'd like to put on the table. Of course, if you recall, we have not completed our budget retreat, and that conversation will be had, and it's already been had with, to some degree, with the city manager, but obviously, between the city manager and making a decision on whether that's something that the city can fund during FY24, that's to be determined.
The wooden bridge that's there today has lasted us 20 years? Is that right?
30, yeah.
30. I'm older than I think. Okay.
And one of the things that, for me, I took the costs associated with the bridge there at Creekside. I think it's aesthetically pleasing. It's held, it's amazing. It's been sturdy. Not to say that that's what will go there. And I work under Steve's tutelage on that particular bridge. And Steve, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that bridge was nearly 200,000 or 150 to 200,000, somewhere in that number. You don't remember, but we've got that actual data. So to kind of give us some comparison, and that was back 10 years ago. So I'm not afraid of the numbers that are on the table, depending on what the design looked like. But if you award 50,000, we'll work with that.
I think the rub, Glenn, is that we're having a hard time putting value on something that we can't see. Like, for example, the landscape project downtown. When they originally said $20,000 on landscaping, I was like, that's excessive, that's crazy. When I saw it, I was like, $300,000, let's do it. So I think that's the rub, is it's hard to say what we're willing to spend if we don't know what we're getting for that. Like, this is a beautiful bridge. It is concrete and stone and steel, and that bridge is not going anywhere. If we're spending $50,000 towards that bridge, I'm good with that. But we don't know that that's what we're getting. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to give you a dollar amount without knowing what it's worth to us at this point.
Here's a suggestion. I think we need to move into a time where we discuss and agree upon how much the Paddock Board is willing to contribute to these items. Not being in construction ourselves, but the fact that they've brought us the $220,000, I think would buy us this bridge.
Probably so, yes, ma'am, for sure. It'll give you the best of the best. I can assure you of that. So.
All right. For the wooden bridge in 2024, what is a number that we're willing to contribute towards a bridge?
I'm happy with taking the recommendation of staff. If staff is saying they have obtained quotes and it's a safe bridge, it's going to last us for many years, it's something that's needed, it's not aesthetically pleasing like a planter or lighting, it's not something you want, something more so that you need, and we're not necessarily approving this dollar amount right now, this is the recommendation that staff is making for the cost that's going to be split with the city. Once that item goes out for actual bid, we will have the ability to say yes or no based on whether that cost is lower. And many times staff brings you items that, or costs that are much lower than anticipated, or they might be over or right at the same dollar amount. So I'm comfortable with the dollar amounts because staff has done the work. That's not saying we're approving these items now. Where I have a little bit more of heartburn in taking everybody's feedback with, can we do economies of scale to buy multiple items for a lower cost but negotiating with those vendors and contractors is that we have approved, for example, installation of new grills and installation of picnic tables and benches for Breezy Hill Park. But for Arlie White Park, we haven't approved those yet. They're only in the budget for FY24, the lighting and the picnic tables and benches. So if we are trying to make sure that Glenn has the ability to do economies of scale, then I would, at the end of the discussion for this item, move forward to approve for Glenn's team the installation of court lighting and solar lighting and picnic tables and benches, because that item is missing. That item is missing. I guess the Kings Creek Park, and also move forward for the play area installation for Kings Creek Park, because that would allow them to hopefully do a little bit more of economies of scale. With the, we're trying to find Bengill Park and the, not the wooden bridge, but the cost of the fence. Cost of the fence, I mean, we can either make a recommendation to Glenn to buy something that is sturdy and will last X number of years, like, we at council had really pushed staff to do, because it was an item that was really needed. We wanted to make sure it lasted. We wanted to make sure that the community felt proud of going to somewhere that they were going to regularly utilize, which is what this area that is needing the fence would be. These are places where our community members will regularly use and will feel proud to utilize. They're not something just for display that we're expending money on, which we've approved some of those items for downtown. So I would ask this board to place some equality, some equity in expenses for both the park and the downtown area when we're looking at either improving aesthetically, not aesthetically, but improving the areas that our community members regularly use versus kind of just drive by.
And I feel like we have so much information right now, it's kind of getting muddled. So with respect to the 2023 funding, is my understanding we've already approved that, is that correct?
You made a recommendation for amounts not to exceed $30,000 for Breezy Hill, $12,000 for Kings Creek, which came in, and then you did say to move those items for Arlie White to fiscal year '24. But with the bids that you have, you can probably combine those.
So do we need a vote on the 2023 expenditure? I'm trying to line out, what do we need votes on, not just general discussion of universal ideas?
The only votes that you will need so far is if you're going to move any of the Arlie White pieces to fiscal year '23, because your quotes did come within the original amount that you budgeted for the other two parks. So if you want to move Arlie White to '23, and then the separate and other consideration will be when we discuss the fiscal year '24 budget, which is the next item. Then we can go in and kind of line out what you would like to fit in.
So I guess we need to start with, are we comfortable with the quotes that we have for the 2023 projects moving forward? And then do we want to put Arlie White in 2023 since they fit within the budget we have allocated, correct?
So, Ms. Secretary, the actual cost, if you act today, the cost for FY '23 are actual costs. They're actual, they're not estimated.
Quotes, right.
They're actual quotes that are below the $50,000 financial policy that we can move forward with if you chose to.
That's page 33 of your packet.
That's correct. Ms. Chairman.
Just for clarification on that, it says 8 times picnic tables and benches. Is that 8 picnic tables, 8 benches? Okay. With concrete pads for each.
So
Yes,
that-
ma'am.
That quote is Child's Play, and it shows the benches are $723 apiece, not $3,000 like I thought. And it shows the picnic tables are $1,400 roughly apiece. They're black. That includes freight, that includes installation, although pads would need to be poured for some.
Okay, so that's actually for 6 of each, not 8 of each.
That's 8 of each, 6 foot.
Oh, I see, I see.
To 21,613. Those are, we're replacing how many and how many new, do you recall?
Correct.
We're replacing four and four.
They're asking how much they're replacing. We're replacing 3, adding 5.
Thank you.
And with that, I would make a motion that we move forward on that. I'm very comfortable with that.
All right, so if there's no other discussion about that one, let's move on to the grills. The grills are, there's 4 grills, 5,000 total. Or I'm sorry, 3,100 total, or 3,200. And that was, that's fine. Any thoughts on the grills? Hillary says they're much,
They're much needed.
I agree.
okay. Any comments on those? Concrete pads, additional $5,000 to pour those. And then that's all the new things for this year for Breezy Hill to complement the gorgeous new basketball court. And then Kings Creek, solar lighting for their play area includes the actual materials, concrete work, and installation at $10,500. And there's a picture on the bottom of what that might look like. Can I entertain a motion to approve the expenditures as shown?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Myrani. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, now we're moving to page 34 of your packet. This is 2024 expenditures. The number shown for the bridge is the total, which we've agreed to spend half of. So let's really think about our 50%, not the total cost of the bridge necessarily. What are we willing to contribute towards a new bridge? Mary?
Do we, I'm kind of reversing us, since we talked about, just talked about the solar, do we want to figure out what we're going to do with that first?
The Arlie White solar.
Oh, did we not agree that that was an acceptable amount? I'm sorry.
There was,
Oh,
So we're asking,
So-
do we want to move it over?
because we talked about earlier and about combining everything together.
okay, I'm getting my parks mixed up.
Okay.
Okay, so since we're buying solar lighting for Kings Creek Park, what are the thoughts from the board on moving forward in 2023 with installing solar lighting at Arlie White? Which we know, I mean, the cost will be between
Not too
10,515, yeah.
I'd motion to move that item forward.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Mary, for that comment. Should we have that same discussion about the Arlo White tables and benches?
I would make a motion to include that as well.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, now we're, I think, ready to talk about 2024 Wooden Bridge, or bridge.
My recommendation would be that the paddock board, not to exceed $75,000 for our portion.
Might build a $150,000 bridge unless the city wants to go ahead and, yeah.
That's where I'm comfortable without heartburn.
Glenn, let's say we move back or decrease that dollar amount. And then, of course, then the city would be, if we would be in agreement, should council be in agreement to pay the other 50%? And then that would be an item that you bid. It would have to come before Paddock again and council again before we even move forward. So we would get to see what the cost of, all those different vendors are proposing it would be.
Well, I think can we regress a little bit? Because what you originally see is some design options. So we identify a design option. Once you make a decision, Paddock board, then council, I suspect. Or we could just focus on the Paddock board, identifying the design option, okay? Get it approved, and then the Paddock board. We have the park board as well. Park board, Paddock board, introduce those items, give you several different options, you mix and match. Then we could design a packet for cost. Then we advertise it. Get pricing, okay? That would be my recommendation. Choose what you want first, then we can go get you real costs at that particular time.
So for budget purposes, there's a motion on the table for not to exceed $75,000 from our board. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, well, actually, let me move forward with these other items, and we'll pass one motion for the 2024 budget request. Thank you, Jason. The next item is to repair and resurface the tennis courts, make them tennis/pickleball courts. Estimated cost from one contractor is $150,000. That includes the court, spot repairs, and fence replacement. Thoughts from the board on how much we would like to contribute to this endeavor?
And we're just talking about the one at the actual tennis courts, not the multipurpose.
That's my understanding. Does anybody recall when they were last resurfaced? Has it been a long time?
It's been that long.
Maybe 10
They need to be
plus years ago.
resurfaced every 10 years, or?
Well, probably more frequently than that, to be candid with you. Probably 5 years, they should be freshened up. At least every 5 years. The goal routinely is every 2 to 3 years, but, depending on budgets, we stretch it to 5. I think we'll be okay. But we far exceeded the time limit that we should have already addressed this.
Are you aware, I'm not, are you aware if there's maintenance packages for tennis courts to help extend the life without having to resurface every 5 to 10?
There is maintenance packages.
Okay.
But from a economy, again, being frugal with the dollars, I don't think you're gonna get the value for the expense of having someone come out and do maintenance. It's just, the math doesn't work. It's not like a swimming pool, right? It works for a swimming pool, but not a hard surface.
I'm not a tennis player. Are you a tennis player? in my mind, the tennis courts often have that mesh. Does that serve a purpose? You don't just see through the,
That's correct.
does that provide
Screening.
shade, screening,
Screening,
wind? Okay.
windscreen,
No, not the actual net, but on the fencing.
screening. It's windscreen. Yeah.
That's not included with this price?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
With what we're talking about, I come up with $310,000. Has anybody done the math
For the 3 items?
for the 3 items? 75,000 for the half, or what, our part of the bridge. 150 and 85.
I don't think we've got to the 85,000 one
Oh,
yet.
okay,
I think that figure is going to change.
okay.
And here's my thought on both of those. Paddock, we are new, exciting things for our parks. I think it's fair to share in the cost with the city budget, but for 100% this to be paid by sales tax dollars, I'm not comfortable with. That's not our directive. So what number would we be willing to contribute towards resurfacing these tennis courts, knowing that we're getting pickleball courts as a result?
Once again, I mean, I'd be comfortable with the amount the staff has presented. I think it's really exciting to be turning into something like a pickleball court. We have high school students that utilize, maybe even now middle school, I'm not quite sure, but students, we have community members, all those individuals that come to the park, contribute in sales tax dollars with spending here, gas, spending at the grocery store, spending out at the, just anywhere they're spending dollars. So for this item, I'm comfortable at this time, and I think one of the reasons I feel comfortable is because the hope, I would feel that the vision long-term is not to continue spending on some of these maintenance items, but to get them accomplished right now, and in the future have the directive to the staff that we're continuing to look at those large items. Like I'm wondering why we didn't include a splash pad, in our budget as an example. But I'm not gonna go too far into that and to come to digress again, to come back on focus on this item specifically, and hopefully we can get some of this work
You make a great point,
accomplished.
Councilwoman. The splash pads, the skate parks, the outdoor auditorium, amphitheaters, that's the kind of stuff I think our dollars are to be going towards. So I just wanted us to kind of consider contributing towards this, because we're getting pickleball courts out of it, and we want these used, but I'm proposing a 50, I'm not even gonna say 50%. The city can choose to spend what they want to, but maybe our not to exceed is a portion of this money, but not the whole thing, since it's a replacement. So is that a
I
75?
can too, just because we're getting pickleball out of it. So
Yeah.
that to me is something new, something that's current, that people seem to, be really enjoying. So that would be where I saw more of the paddock board being.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we a 75,000 or 100,000? I'm throwing those numbers out towards this item.
Personally, I'm willing to go half.
75. Like you're gonna make a donation?
No. Not unless I win the lottery and then I have to buy a ticket.
I think we would need to do half not to exceed something.
Mhm.
Okay. Half,
Because I'm worried about the 85,000 on the next item.
okay. So,
'Cause I would not be willing to be
I was supposed to say,
50% on that.
for the tennis courts, when you think about the fact that we're talking about 6 courts, that changes what
Sure.
I think is reasonable for our portion to be.
Okay.
So, but I agree that I don't think the paddock board should be solely funding a replacement
so half not to exceed what number? 75,000?
Without the shade, right? Is that without the
That's
shade?
my understanding.
The mesh on the side, it's to keep debris off the tennis courts, and it's also to help divert the wind when you're playing tennis.
include that in your budget, or your quotes, I'm sorry.
Price.
Okay,
So-
yeah.
Would be, I would be comfortable with not to exceed 100,000 if it's also including the shades and the full package.
That's what I was gonna say.
Any other thoughts? All right, Sarah's doing our math over here.
I'm trying.
Carnell probably is too.
I'm
So
trying.
Carnell, on that item, we're at half, not to exceed 100,000.
We're at half or?
We are gonna fund up to half of the cost, not to exceed 100,000. That includes screening. Oh, that's not half. I see what
No.
you're saying. Take off the half. Our contribution for that item would be 100,000.
100,000.
And we'd like to see prices on screening.
Okay.
That may end up being half.
We're still paying 100.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thoughts on the multipurpose court and an $85,000 estimate for that?
If this is, I mean, you're doing basically the same thing, and do we not get a discount for doing 7 rather than 6?
The average
But
on
you're
the
not-
6 was what, 25,000? So how did we jump up to 85,000 on the one?
The condition of the tennis court surfaces compared to the multipurpose court are like night and day. So even with a visit, you'll go, oh my. It's a physical visit on site, I think will tell the story. There's gonna be, I can attest to far more work required on the multipurpose court than the tennis courts. I can assure you that. So, obviously, there's gonna be some removal, replacement. We did a small project that, I believe it was Madex tried to do a project there, and it was a quick fix, temporary, for a previous event. It lasted a short time, and the multipurpose court is just, it's gonna be, it's in far worse condition than the tennis courts.
So honestly, this is not a repair and resurface. This is a replacement.
No, ma'am, there's portions of the court that will not be replaced. So it's going to be a repair and resurface. You don't have to remove the whole thing, but you've got to saw cut out the bad spots so that you can create a complete, usable surface.
Is it square? It's not rectangle like a,
It's rectangle. I'd say it's
Those were
more
two-
rectangle,
Those were 2 tennis courts.
yeah, basically.
Those were, that's how old I am.
okay.
Those were the original 2 tennis courts that were in the city. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
It's so
So,
old, my mother played
Es-
on.
Essentially, it's 2 courts even.
What we should-
So if you want to utilize it from that, I know 1 and 2 is 2, but they're essentially 2 courts.
What about the
Together.
basketball goals themselves? I'm sure they need to be replaced.
They need to be replaced.
And not
That's
the
correct.
pole, but the $200.
We would do the pole as well as the, especially if we're going to do all this work, we'd find a way to get the poles in.
Or out there?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
That's kind of my thing is like, I feel like we should be doing the pretty stuff. I feel like the city should be doing the maintaining the surface. We should be putting in nicer backboards. We should be putting in seating out there. We should be doing even like the coated fencing because that is an aesthetic improvement that is going to draw people in and attract people in. I'm personally very passionate about this particular court because I do feel like it is one of the most utilized facilities in our entire town. It is right in the heart of everything. People from all parts of the community use this. But with that being said, I'm also very passionate about us not taking on things that aren't really the responsibility of the paddock board to do.
Thank you for that feedback. Is there fencing? I mean, is
Yes,
fencing
ma'am.
necessary on a basketball court?
Yes, ma'am, it is. Otherwise, you have kids chasing balls
There's a
in the
road.
streets,
Thank
There's a
you.
road
the
right
adjacent
next to it.
streets.
Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Vision, yeah. Okay.
I guess one more time here, maybe third, fifth time's a charm here. But so resurface replace multipurpose court, $75,000 estimate that we're looking at. Glenn, you said that's just for, as it reads, just resurface, replacing. It doesn't take care of the fencing, it doesn't take care of the basketball goals and poles, or even additional benching, of course, seating area. It's just the resurfacing and replacement of that.
You mean the $100,000? We'll call it the new proposed.
I'm on the wrong page.
100,000. That's page 34. Are you on page 34?
33.
At Ben Gill, the estimate was 150,000, right?
We're talking about the 85 now, aren't we?
Well, I think she was.
No, the repair and resurface so 85,000.
Okay, you're talking about, okay, 85,000. Go ahead,
170,000.
Okay.
But that was essentially two and a half basketball courts.
Yes, but remember, the fencing around the court, total replacement. The surface of the court was not repaired. Essentially, it's a rubber mat laid over the top of the existing surface. So that project alone was 170,000. If we would have had to do surface repairs, the cost would have gone exceedingly higher. And we were concerned. Remember, the question was asked, did you have somebody go out and inspect and assess the surfaces of the courts? Yes, we did. We communicated that to you all. It was determined that those courts surfaces were sufficient to just lay the rubber matting over the current surfaces. That's it. So we pull those mats up, you're back to the original state of the courts at Breezy Hill.
Is that the new technology that cities are adopting?
It is. But the surfaces has to be in a certain condition first. But you're 100% right. That is the surfaces moving forward that's being used nationally.
What are the board's thoughts on repairing this surface, new fence, and going back with mats instead, bright colors, go Tigers, whatever, versus what is quoted here is red and light green colors with white playing lines?
From a maintenance standpoint, that would be far exceedingly acceptable for us.
That's great feedback.
Yes.
And I understand the price will look different.
It
That's
will.
on here. So we need to decide if y'all think that's the direction we want to go, what our contribution would be for that endeavor.
I know I have not been out to see the courts at Breezy Hill, but what I've seen on Facebook, what I've seen, it has a wow factor, especially in a much-used park. And I think this one little area at Ben Gill is probably used as much, maybe not as much volume-wise, but there is not a day I go by there that there are not kids on that court.
All right. So you sound in favor of doing a wow factor, Myrani?
Yes.
Okay. So are we comfortable with, what number are we comfortable with contributing to that?
Okay, so what you did at Breezy Hill is 2.5 basketball courts? Is that what you all said? Okay, sorry, I couldn't remember who said it. And that was the cost of what for the mat?
Just for the courts, the project total price, the courts were, can you remember off the top of your head? It was $170,000. That's the magic number
I think
for
the
me.
fencing was 70,000,
And the fencing
75,000.
was 75 plus or minus dollars.
So 170 was
Total.
The courts.
the fence and
And they didn't have to research.
and they didn't have,
And they did not have to resurface. That's correct. Can you pull up the actual cost while we're here, please, for the Jamie Foxx project? So we give them actual.
What,
that one here? That was for
2.5 quarters?
2.5
Right, for
courts.
2 courts, if we compare it to.
Yeah.
Those mats would serve the same purpose at Ben Gill as it does at Breezy Hill.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
But our problem is the underneath surface, the concrete.
That's correct.
The repair.
That's what has to be.
Repair it first. Right. And rest assured, the goal is, we're not looking to replace the whole thing. There's a process of saw cut out a bad section and repair that, and we don't have to replace the whole thing. So don't let us scare you with, when we say replace. Please don't.
So what are the board's thoughts on contributing at $85,000, knowing that we're getting a wow factor in a heavily trafficked area of our parks in town? Are you all comfortable with that number?
Not to exceed.
And it's the same as this, if you don't use all the money, it'll come back to it,
We never touch it, sir.
175.
That's correct.
because it's just an
And
estimate.
then the.
That's correct, yes, sir. We will not touch any more dollars than what's, because y'all will come back and y'all will approve the actual final cost. And we'll only, and Raylan can attest to that, the dollar amount, the expenditure will go actually to probably Raylan, and she'll manage the dollar side of it anyway. So we'll just give her the invoice and it gets
One
processed.
more person, is the city helping out with this at all, or we just doing it ourselves?
Okay, so, Mr. Board Member, our goal is to be as aggressive as possible because we love our parks. We love our parks, we love our downtown, we love our city. I, in my current position, cannot tell you what the contributions are going to be from the city, but you can bet I'm going to fight like heck to get anything and everything possible from the city manager and from council to help support what we're trying to do here today.
Pay half of the 85,000.
They could.
So we've got, we've got Mayrani here, we've got Glenn here. You're doing your budget right now, is that my understanding?
That is correct.
And so at that point, once y'all complete your budget, we'll know what the city's commitment is.
And as one council member of a council, I warm my heart to see that a board, like the Paddock Board, was willing to match dollars to help offset the cost, and why would I, as a council member, not prioritize those items? I'm not speaking for the council as a whole, but as my thought process here.
Thank you for that feedback. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to approve FY 2024 Park Board capital budget as follows: up to $175,000 contribution towards replacing the wooden bridge, up to $100,000. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Just 75.
Sorry. 75,000, thank you. 100,000 for the tennis courts, including screening, and $85,000 for the, as described, multi-purpose court. Do I have a motion to approve that?
Motion to approve with the quote of the rubber, is that what?
Yes.
Of the rubber matting.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, next. At this time, we'll discuss and consider FY 2024 budget recommendations, and for that, I'll call on Raylan Smith.
Obviously, we'll move some numbers around based on the previous discussion. What I've done is kind of drafted, it's a first draft of what you could possibly look at for fiscal year '24. There's a couple of projects on here that we had discussed, but no decisions were made, so I wanted to get down to that. And then also, keep in mind that the new line item, we'll actually be discussing that in executive session today. So we won't go into great detail about that amount being in there. So if you start up at the top, I was looking at allocating funding so that we can continue through design and tech stop meetings with your complete streets. We have an interlocal agreement with Kaufman County where they are sponsoring large portion of the Quiet Zone project itself. So we've got the funding from Kaufman County for that to go all the way through design and also our Chrissy grant application. So this would be just to keep the ball rolling on complete streets, Highway 80 and Spur 226, as it correlates with quiet zones.
When do we think we'll be spending hard dollars or borrowing hard dollars for quiet zone?
The grant window opens in January, so they would award by summer, so we would actually not need to borrow until next fiscal year. So it's a total $38 million project. We are spending approximately $2 million is how much the county has put forward for design on the project, and so we will actually be moving into design this month.
Total cost of quiet zones, $38 million.
Yes, ma'am. We feel really good about the Chrissy grant itself. A lot of the upgrades that are having to be done to each of those crossings are for safety purposes. So when we apply for the Chrissy grant, FRA and UP DIAG testing recommendations had more to do with the safety at the crossings. And so essentially, once each crossing is brought up to a certain level of safety, because that is our grant application, then it will also qualify for a quiet zone. So much of what we're having to do to the crossings is safety upgrades.
And we think we'll have quiet, we think the train will stop blowing its horn in 2025?
Possibly 25, definitely 26, because we have 3 years to be under construction before we have to do a new DIAG testing.
Okay.
So that's why we have to kind of keep things moving. So we definitely have to be under construction within 3 years. And so we're only looking at about 12 months for design and grant application. Consultant fees and services, that would be the remainder amount for the design services for your landscape project. One item that I wanted to recommend to you and kind of get your feedback on, we talk a lot about different projects. We try to, Glenn doing bridge projects in the park, or, are we buying the same grills across all parks? So where's the continuity in what we're doing? One thing that I would recommend is that the Paddock Board sponsor a request for qualifications for a park architect. This would not be to produce a park master plan. You already have one of those. But actually someone kind of like a Mark Thacker that you could have an umbrella contract with. And when we're looking at doing things like parklets, or Town Square, or an upgrade to Ben Gill, or an upgrade to Arlie White, that we have someone that has all of the parks in mind and can kind of get to know y'all and your design needs or wants. And so when things like a bridge comes in, we're not necessarily asking the bridge company to tell us what we want, but we might have a sketch or something that we know would eventually feed into more projects. It would be like Mark Thacker. You would get a quote for design services for a particular project if there was something that you wanted done, but it might be nice to have a contract with someone like that. It was just going to be one recommendation.
Thoughts?
What kind of cost are we talking about with that?
I wouldn't budget more than $25,000 a year. I don't think that you would spend that. I think that if you had a major park project coming up, then that would be, you would look at that separately. But if it's just, if someone wants to build a parklet or, the empty lot here on Moore, I mean, just having someone that you can reach out to that kind of can lay things out for you. And again, making sure that we're looking at all the parks whenever we make decisions.
So just, because we're only a small portion of, to me, there's 3 of us kind of in bed together, the park board, ourselves, and the city. And this is from the master plan that we're kind of all working off of. Wouldn't this be something the city would want to do?
Well,
Because it sounds like a very smart move. to make sure we're adhering to, or at least following the general guidelines of the master plan.
Right. And I've discussed this, and so that's why I wanted to bring it to Paddock first, because if it was something that you were interested in or interested in those types of services, then yes, that would be a recommendation that I would take to the city council. You know, we have Arboretum number 2, we've got Town Square, we have upgrades to Arlie White. I mean, there's so many projects that are going on, and we do have our park master plan, which is a great document to work off of. But it doesn't have the details of what those parks would look like. And so I wanted to get the opinion of Paddock. I've talked to Mr. Sims, I've also talked to Glenn. I mean, we've all been very open about, you know, how do we best plan for these items. So it was just something I wanted to bring up to you.
And I agree, it needs, probably needs to be done. Unfortunately, I think that's not where our money should.
Perfect.
That's just me. I'd rather pay that $25,000 and get something physical that somebody's going to see.
That works.
Because I think that's something the city needs to, I'm actually surprised they're not already doing that myself, but.
I also love the idea, and even if we get our biggest bang for our buck out of them initially, where they say, here's the benches you want in your parks, here's the trash cans, here's the whatever, man, that's worth.
Right. Okay.
Because one of the, if I were to be looking at something like this again, I'd be interested in kind of the scope, right, of defining the scope on what type of projects, or design projects this contractor would be looking at. Is it trash cans, or is it a bridge? Is it signage? Are they going to talk to the neighborhoods and look at the history versus kind of just they're going to tell us what the vision is? Or I'd be more in favor of a combination of their experience, but also what's the history behind those parks before those designs would come?
No, yeah, absolutely. I just think that we are definitely at a point, especially when you look at the addition of new parks, that just having a system in place of how you introduce those parks, how you plan them out. I mean, we know that Arboretum is coming in. We know that we have available park space around the city lake. We have, I mean, you know, there's a lot of parkland, and it's definitely covered in the master plan. But, you know, we know that the next step is going to be having someone who can recommend the landscape and the design and what those actual parks would look like, which of course would include the community engagement and those types of recommendations, so.
Thank you.
Anyway, moving down, we would just do the regular $75,000 for your facade reimbursement. No additional for the park capital improvements. I think every year you budget a set $75,000, but obviously we come to y'all before that money is expended.
Question, Raylan? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, 4501. So that should have been just the regular $75,000 annual budget, which is the number that you usually carry in that line item.
The 25,000 should be 75?
Yes.
On the Anderson Griffith Partnership, just above that, are we going to get to spend that this year?
We're going to discuss that here in just a little bit, yeah. So I am not planning for y'all to carry over that line item. As far as your downtown capital improvements, I have the estimated $500,000 for the actual landscape project. And then I wanted to talk to you about the Virginia and Moore parking lot improvements, if that was a project that you were interested in sponsoring.
2 lots?
2 parking lots, and those are in your packet. We do have the parking lot designs in your packet. The reason that I wanted to go ahead and bring them up, because I know that y'all have discussed, you know, maybe we don't want to worry about parking right now, but if we're doing the landscape project, I just want to make sure that it's considered, especially when we're putting the landscape. I've already asked our consultants to make sure that the landscaping along that corridor there on Moore and there at the corner, we accommodate for, there is going to eventually be a parking lot there, so, but I did want to bring those two items to you.
What page, is this in our packet?
What page is that, Katie? Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, no problem.
Oh.
How many parking spots is this?
You get 22 in that one. And the next one is 19. This parking lot here will accommodate the one-way traffic that will eventually be along South Alley.
The 300,000 is for the one parking lot.
300,000, what I did is I split up the design services and the construction into one fiscal year, assuming you'd pay half and half at 600,000 total for both parking lots, including design. I just split it up between 2 fiscal years.
Is the city?
Okay, this picture here is the south side of 80.
Yes, yes, sir.
'Cause I was a little confused. You got LA Street running into
Oh, yeah.
Virginia Street, and they run parallel.
That should say South Alley. I don't,
Oh.
yeah. Instead of South Adelaide, that should be South Alley.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. No, you're right. The streets were not adding up, that's for sure. But yeah, that should say South Alley.
I know that we have to factor parking into our long-term plan. And there is certainly some value in build it and they will come. It just seems like a lot of money for a problem we don't have yet. That's kind of where I'm sitting on it.
The one thing that I would say is with the potential of the restaurant within that block, it could very quickly become a need, especially on the south side. So when you look at what's going to be built next, we do hope that within fiscal year '24 that you would have a standing restaurant there at the corner of Adelaide and Moore.
I had the same thought, Hillary, where my mind is going right now is once the building is raised, it's gonna look just like that other vacant lot on the other end, and I don't want more of that, more of unkempt grass and, this is a clean look.
If we're gonna pick a priority between the north and the south lot is the priority. I guess my question is, do we feel at this point to do both at the same time? What is the demolition schedule for the north lot?
So both north and south lot will be demoed within the same week. We have the underground tanks that are being removed next week there at Cowboys, and then Neighbors Demolition will come in the following week and do both sides. And they will be grading, and we're having some sod added so that it is a smooth, clean surface. But they will be gone within the month.
I could see too, this will be landscaped to some degree, so if we
Yeah.
go ahead and make it a parking lot, it can be included in our landscape.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be, would it?
I mean, to me, we would, and this is just me, because I'm not into parking lots right now. I'm kind of like, let's get some volume. We've got plenty of parking spaces right now, back, front, side. I'm hoping we're gonna have a problem eventually, and we've planned for that. But if we're gonna do some landscaping, we could, the lot on the end down here doesn't look the best because it's an empty lot. That doesn't mean we can't do something temporary here to cover up the bareness until we're ready to actually move forward with parking lots. That's a lot of money to spend on something right now that we don't have an issue with.
And, one idea is that, again, we don't have to be responsible for the full amount of this. It is downtown. Because it is a lot of money.
Just to make sure I'm looking at this right, would that be about 150 for one parking lot and 150 for another parking lot?
No, your total budget is 600,000. I just have it split between 2 fiscal years.
But if we were just talking about doing one parking lot, like the one on the southern end,
300,000.
it would be 300,000, and we're estimating, because we have the work that's undergoing right now with the tearing down and taking out the tank, and it would take approximately, after that was done, if this project moved forward on this corner, we're talking about 1 month, 3 months,
You'd be about 4 months,
About
start to
four-
finish.
4 months.
We've done enough of the concept design that you could go directly into construction docs.
And I'm trying to also think about the cost in, because the city purchased the lots. Trying to recall what dollars, if any, have been spent on either of these two parking lots already. I'm kind of confused between the paddock board and the city cost right now.
So TERS, number 1, did the land acquisition, and they're also doing the demolition of the facilities.
And you're asking for assistance now of the paddock board with
The parking.
the surface. Is there any reason, I know it's in the the downtown area, but is there any reason why TERS couldn't take on doing the parking lots?
Yeah, it could absolutely be an item that we could recommend to them.
They have a lot of, I'm just trying to recall their expenses right now.
I have no idea, what their budget is, or if they have any money left after those two purchases.
I only caution you, when you split it up, you were just talking about it, you go all, you get quantity of price. It's a double-edged sword, so.
Yeah, I agree, it's costing,
I'm not pushing you, I'm just letting you know the facts.
yeah, it's costing the demo guy, it's costing us a lot less when the demo guy's tearing one down and then driving
Once they
across the
mobilize-
street.
They mobilize once and they.
Yeah, I agree.
Double mobilize.
And just for the record, I'm not opposed to be talked into anything. I'm like, help me
Yeah.
understand.
It is from when our passion is breathing, additional life into downtown. And it's the chicken and the egg with the parking. It always has been. I couldn't agree more that there is not a problem today, but we are begging for nightlife and restaurants and downtown living, all of which require parking. And we don't know how many people are driving down Moore Avenue every day, considering making an investment, and they just keep on driving because parking will quickly become a problem when there's something going on, daytime or nighttime. So, I'm just.
One other comment would be along that line is, it's hard for me to entice someone to come and invest when they don't see that there's some investment from the city.
Yeah.
There needs to be, sadly, you gotta kind of jump a little bit ahead, make sure the commitment that they will get a rate of return on their investment.
And I totally hear the concern about, spending dollars on something that maybe the traffic isn't there. And at the same time, I think about one of our local restaurants, just on the other side of the street that is trying to open up again, and because of lack of parking, they're not able to. And I think last time we talked, they were hoping on some of this parking moving forward, and that's just one of our small local restaurants. It's
It's a difficult block right there because of Virginia and Moore and those Broad and all of them not being big enough to have off-street parking or on-street parking. It's a difficult corner. We've talked to several people in that area.
Raylan, realistically, you're talking about a restaurant opening this year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
One more question. So in terms of design, am I understanding that, because right now Cowboys has very open, I mean, their parking lot is very open. It looks like from this, they're going to be adding some curbing, is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Would
so-
there be parallel spots in front of that curb now that they're there? Okay.
Yes.
So we would be gaining street parking as well as
Yes, because
numbers.
what you'll do is you will get rid of the entrance off of Moore, so you will only be able to enter from Virginia.
From Virginia and from South Valley.
Yes.
And we don't have to pay for all of this. But if we want to take a part in it, then we need to give Raylan some direction for budget purposes.
And Raylan, I recall that there is going to be a mural on that wall.
Yes, that is where the Attorney Gray mural is going to go.
The more we talk about it, the more I like the idea of establishing kind of a cornerstone for our downtown. You know, this is gonna be something immediate. I just feel like with the lighting, the landscaping, and this, because from what I'm hearing, I mean, we're moving on this now. So I think it's worth our investment to set the tone. The more that I think about it, the more I look at you.
What are your thoughts on, because you've got likely some TERS money, you've got, some city budget perhaps. What are your thoughts on sharing in a third of this, but a third of the total cost of two parking lots, which would be $200,000? And our contribution, we hope, would go to the beautification and aesthetics, not just the paving and, but that this will look like more than just a parking lot.
Absolutely. Well, it would definitely be incorporated into your landscape project. And that was one of the main things when I was meeting with Kimley Horn, was making sure that they were making the connection of how your landscape project would go all the way down to Virginia. Yes. Yes, yes. Which is helpful when you finally have the same firm who's doing multiple projects. So now they're all feeding into each other, which is nice.
Including Quiet Zone, because they'll
Yes.
be designing
They will be doing South Alley in each of the crossings. So now you got someone who has a bird's eye view of everything going on, which is good.
So, I guess because we do have the TERS board and hearing about the economies of scale, like I would prefer to do one, but at the same time, but realizing eventually they're gonna have to be done, and we've already made the investment. Whether it's from a third to a half, but for both.
Yes.
Parking lots.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what we're comfortable spending.
Yeah, it's just a difference of 200 to 300. And I'm telling you, we have the budget for either number. If we haven't.
I'm feeling better with a three-way split.
Okay. We can
So
definitely
that would be what,
recommend that.
100,000 this year, or 24, and then 100,000, 25, or,
We're talking about doing it all
Yeah.
in 24 now to
Oh.
capitalize on economy of the
Okay.
scale.
so 200,000 for 24.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that in the form of a motion? I'll entertain a motion for Paddock's contribution toward this project, not to exceed $200,000. Do I have the motion? And that includes both parking lots in FY '24.
Within this fiscal year, yes, ma'am.
I'll bite the bullet and make the motion. Let's see if we get a second.
I will second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Raylan.
Your next item, we have done so much in the last couple of months. So this is just a very rough draft of an update to what would be your capital work plan. I took some pieces from your original plan in 2019, updated some of your projects. Now that we have more detail about what you'll be doing in '23 and kind of your projected projects for '24, I'm going to continue to work on this. My recommendation would be that maybe by next month, or if you wanted to skip a month and come back in September, we would have a finalized budget for you to look at, finalize the projections of revenue for this fiscal year, and we can kind of wrap up your financial standing by September. We have been meeting every month to get some of this stuff knocked out. Generally, you meet every other month, so I kind of wanted to get a feel for what you would like to do as far as your schedules.
This is just me, and it might be my age, but it helps when I meet monthly because I can remember what's going on.
Okay.
I mean, that's just,
I agree.
And I would prefer more frequent meetings that are shorter as opposed to more sporadic ones that are longer just from getting to work.
Gotcha.
We're not going to meet weekly like the council.
but I mean, I think that, the last couple have gone a little longer, but when we were only meeting every other month, it was almost like a half-day thing, so.
Okay. So we'll schedule, it's really nice too, especially whenever I'm working with tenants in downtown, to be able to say, within a couple of weeks, we'll be able to go in front of Paddock, so that helps.
Are we, we're still on 6.3, right?
Yes?
Yeah, we are talking about budget recommendations, and I sent out an email, but I didn't actually get sent out, and I'm going to follow up with sharing an article from, it's like Town and City, it's a Texas magazine that focuses on what different communities are doing, and I think it was Saginaw, that has improved not only downtown, but also some of their surrounding areas, I guess maybe kind of like our downtown district area. And what they're doing is that they're providing grants to either the leasee, or those leasing the building, or the building owner. And their grants, I believe they're like up to that $5,000, but it includes improvements to like lighting inside of the building, patio, of course a little bit more of larger capital improvement projects, and then of course then those projects are vetted. And when I saw that article, it made me think about some of the feedback that we've heard from existing business owners. You're thinking about, there's a lot of vision for the future, and we're kind of, what are you doing to assist us at this time? And if you're only assisting the business, the business or the building owner, then kind of where does that put us in terms of expenses and sprucing up our space? So I'm going to send out that article, but I'd really love to see the board's feedback and hopefully interest in also moving some of or having a line item where we could look at expenses like that help improve our existing businesses, and then also provide an incentive for those small business owners that are looking for spaces in the downtown area.
Absolutely.
And it may be as simple as our facade reimbursement program may not have to be strictly facade.
Yeah.
And then you could easily get that message out to the building owners who are considering projects like Myrani just mentioned. It's a good idea.
Would that be something, and this is for staff, for Raylan, can you take that in a formal request of updating the facade agreement? Trying to butcher the name.
So I brought a draft to y'all a few months ago where we had looked at removing facade and, kind of having it be more open-ended. That way we could maneuver through the different needs. I'll bring that back next month. We reviewed it. I think everyone liked, especially dropping the word facade from the application. But yeah, I'll bring that back next month. And so y'all can take a motion on that. And then that way, that would definitely redefine your guidelines.
Would be helpful. Again, this is one example of what one community is doing, but to share that information to see if there's a link on, what that policy looks like in each community to see if it's something we would want to support.
Sure, I'll do some research.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I know our last meeting, Mark Rylander, is that his name? He mentioned the fact that just even the city, not their improvement committee or whatever they had, but the city was giving tax breaks and other stuff to help them through that process. So I don't know if they've looked at that as well.
And I'm wondering if that's a recommendation from the board for staff to review, like specific policies or
Policies, for
that are
instance.
existing in other communities for the city and pat it.
I see her taking notes, so
I got it.
I think she took it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item 6.4, we are going to discuss and consider, well, you kind of brought it up already, but discuss and consider the July 2023 Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation Capital Work Plan update.
So again, this is just some basic notes from everything we've kind of been going over the last couple of months. I want to go in and make some tweaks to it, and if there's any recommendations that you have before we get to a final document, that would be great. I just want to make sure that we're capturing some of those projects that you did. We definitely want to capture where the money goes to, how it's spent. And then what I would like is each year, whenever you do your budget, that we provide this update and it be posted on the website. And so that we have a gathering of information that people can go in and look at some of the historic data.
I appreciate that. I could see an opportunity, time to time we get asked to speak at local clubs or chamber about what the paddock has accomplished. So some presentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. So that you'll get a newer update next month, but it's a start.
Thank you. Item 6.5 is discuss and consider grant reimbursement application.
So, on the same note of Councilmember Mayrani Velazquez, I have received a request for funding reimbursement for the new music shop and coffee shop that is going into 105 Westmore, which is Cholet's building. It's the old radio station. Cholet has done, if you haven't been in that building, she has done an amazing job renovating the inside of that building. I took Jane over there a couple of months ago. They finally negotiated their lease. Everyone is very happy. Jane had some contractors come out, and this is the amount that she is proposing that it would cost to do some of the electrical upgrades and the plumbing upgrades for the coffee shop. She is having to add a couple of walls just to separate on the music side to separate out those individual rooms. So she had a total budget of $27,500, and that would be complete turnkey and her moved in, including signage. So,
She's asking for 100% reimbursement.
yes.
I'm surprised she can do it for that.
She hasn't started this part of the project.
No.
Okay. But these are hard bids.
I feel personally like interior walls that are gonna help her business should be her responsibility. The things that are external and the things like the plumbing that are gonna be foundational to that building regardless of what business is in there. I'm much more comfortable with us. So I don't know that I'm comfortable with 100%.
Okay.
but it certainly looks good, and that building is certainly one that needs
Yeah.
freshening. So.
Yes.
Just asking on the proposed frontage, does that meet the criteria for downtown?
We're going to have to definitely work on her sign.
Okay, thank you, yeah.
Do what?
I'm
Her
not talking-
sign, yes, it does not meet our sign ordinance, but I did respect her wish and include that picture. But we have some work left to do on her sign.
You know what time the hours of the coffee shop will be? Flatters.
I don't know, but, I will find out for you.
It sincerely matters because we need businesses that are gonna open early, stay.
Before the office is open. Yes. I do know that her shop now, she opens at 9, but when she had come to the ZBA to open her coffee shop, it was the 7 o'clock opening for the coffee shop, 7 to 7. So I will find out.
Is it your impression, looks like it's two different entrances to two different?
So actually, it looks like two entrances, but they do connect. So what you'll have is you can enter on the left side, and that's going to be mainly the coffee side. But, and then the right would be music. But in the rear, it's all one suite. So,
Is this something that, like, is Mark Thacker working with this business owner? Is this something that's like in the? I'm curious do we know how much has been expensed and, how much expenses they've had or will have in total?
I don't know their total because this is outside of some of the items that Cholet also had already started on the building.
Thinking about like want versus need versus what's, accomplished.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we had talked as a board about, when we're doing these reimbursements, that our part of the reimbursement would be to take it from what they need to what Mark Thacker says the historic,
Right.
Aesthetics need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're saying that he's working with.
Yes, Thacker would be the one to do the rendering, and he'll also be helping us with that sign.
Do you know when we would see the rendering? I mean, right now, and it's probably just because of everything else we've seen and that's going downtown. This right now, it's just not looking what I thought a building downtown would look like. So I don't mind I very much believe we need to help this person out.
Right.
Just not, the rendering is distracting me, I guess.
Yeah, no, I can get that for you.
So one thought to follow up on Hillary's comment, if we exclude the top item that was the wall for everything, then we're looking at a $19,565 grant reimbursement.
I was just hoping when we talked about what revamping that building would look like, we would see a little more dramatic of a change. For especially when we're talking about in comparison to some of the other projects.
Right.
I don't, do we recall how much we gave towards Houston Smith? I mean, he put in all new window, he completely changed the facade of that, and I feel like we were in the same ballpark of money.
Okay.
And that's kind of.
Is it fair to say that if Mark Thacker can really work his magic on this, then we'd like to see that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, can do that.
Will, this one, I'm thinking about anything that might delay, like the opening of the building / what can we still approve? At a later time, when renderings come back, so I do feel like, I try travel quite a bit for work right now. There's a lot of remote workers. Sometimes I'm looking for a coffee shop or a, library, something that has internet, maybe some food, may walk over to another business and buy something. I don't know if will any of the work be delayed if we?
So would you be comfortable in releasing a not-to-exceed amount of the 5,000 each for the electrical and the plumbing so that they can continue construction? And then I'll come back to you second week in August with the exterior. Because that would not prevent her from opening if she finishes the inside of the building.
I'm okay with that.
That work? Okay.
Do you think that's reasonable for Mark to get back to us with
Yes. Yeah,
something for the
he's
exterior and
yeah.
the sign?
Yes, because he's working on it now.
Okay,
So, yeah,
okay.
I'll touch base with him. We'll have it.
Entertain a motion to approve up to $10,000 grant reimbursement for the electrical and plumbing at this location.
I second it.
Thank you. Oh,
Oh,
well,
sorry, I
make
make
a
the motion.
motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any other grant reimbursements we need to discuss? All right, at this time, we're going to adjourn into executive session in accordance with section Economic Development